Hey y'all, this is Marley K. Hope y'all are well. This is going to be a video about rights. We're going to talk about states' rights today and the federal government's rights to supersede states and what that will mean for us, and then what that means in the big scheme of things as far as the New World Order, and then trying to figure out when we're going to be leaving here, because you got to know things getting ready to get bad. So this article that's on Microsoft Start says this is not over. Texas says after Supreme Court lets Biden administration remove razor wire at the U.S.-Mexico border. So if you don't know what's been going on at the southern border, we've been overrun for a couple of years, pretty much during the entire, I would say probably since Obama's administration. Uh, we've been overrun with illegal entrants. And I'm calling them the legal term, illegal entrants. I don't call them undocumented. I try not to, because all those names have been politicized. But in this country, the legal name for the people that come across the border illegally are illegal entrants. So when I say that, it's because it is the correct term that is used by immigration. So these illegal entrants are coming across the border, and they can't stop them. And they're coming into Texas, and Texas is like, we don't want them. We don't have any room for them. I don't know why y'all won't fix this problem. And so, at one point, he had been shipping them to other cities that claim to be sanctuary cities, which is interesting to me, because how do you get to be a sanctuary city unless you have states' rights? So if you want to be a sanctuary city, you have the right to do that. But if you don't want to be a sanctuary city, or if you don't want to have these people coming and destabilizing your state, you don't have the right to do that. And so this is what this Supreme Court ruling says. Like, nobody has challenged the sanctuary state um, idea at the Supreme Court to say it was unconstitutional. But to protect your own state borders and the citizens in the state, it is now not necessarily legal. You can't do it. And so that's what this ruling is saying, which basically is putting an end to states' rights. So if you don't have states' rights, then that means the federal government controls you. And y'all know that the 13 colonies um, uh, uh, just, they're not going to tolerate that. And when I say the 13 original colonies, the 13 states, the first, 13 states that um, decided they were going to challenge the United States and secede and become the Confederate States of America, well, we are setting the stage up for that to happen again. And so with this Texas ruling, you're going to have people in Texas calling for the secession of Texas. Know who's going to follow next? Florida. Know who's going to be about that life next? Probably South Carolina or Georgia. And then you'll have these states have their national guards mobilized, and they'll probably have a draft. And try to challenge the United States government. And then, because now there's no such thing as a United States government, there's global government, you're going to probably be attacked by either the UN or NATO. Um, but anyway, things are shaping up to be real ugly right about now. And so we all need to pay attention, especially if you live in a red state, because y'all know the red states, they believe in states' rights. They believe in rebellion. The children of the corn believe in rebellion, and you're not going to tell them what to do. So I would pay very close attention to this story. But again, I told y'all about that movie, The Civil War, that's coming out in April. I don't think that was an accidental release. I think that was predictive programming. They're actually telling you what's coming. By April, we'll be in a civil war. And by the time April comes, or somewhere around that time period, you will be able to clearly see the state shaping up to go in that direction. So I just want to talk about it so that we won't be taken aback or surprised. But you need to understand we don't have any rights. We're not sovereign citizens. We've been sold out. We are international citizens now, global citizens. We don't have any borders. Your states don't have any rights. Your leaders don't have any power. Um, we're just in transition right now. And this is why it's very important to prepare for any and everything. You have to prepare for the natural and the spiritual battles that we are going to be getting into. So let me read this story. So it says, as the migrant crisis continues at the U.S.-Mexico border and beyond, tensions between Texas and federal officials remain high. Here are the latest developments. Razor wire is still up along a contested section of the U.S.-Mexico border a day after the U.S. Supreme Court voted to let federal Border Patrol agents remove the barrier installed there as part of Texas's Republican governor's security initiative, while the state's legal challenge to cut the wire cutting plays out. That was confusing. A CNN team in Eagle Pass, Texas, recently the epicenter, I guess that's what they were saying they were from. Recently, the epicenter of the migrant crisis and near where 3 migrants drowned this month, spotted the razor wire Tuesday morning. The High Court ruled 5-4 on Monday in a victory for President Papa in the ongoing dispute with Texas over whether Border Patrol has the legal authority to cut concertina wire, which is the wire they use when they want to keep you out, the kind with the razor on it, installed by Texas on the banks of the Rio Grande. The day after the ruling, the Department of Homeland Security demanded Texas give it full access to the border by January 26th, according to a letter obtained by CNN. Excuse me. Texas has said Eagle Pass Shelby Park area is open to the public, but U.S. Customs and Border Protection have been locked out from accessing it, according to the letter. The head of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection told CNN Tuesday the Supreme Court ruling allows us to have access to the border so we can begin to access like we did before, noting the rest of the case is still under active litigation. And so U.S. Customs and Border Protection is supposed to be protecting the borders, but they have orders to do something totally different from what the Constitution said. And just, the nation has laws and rules and policies, and they're not following those anymore. So this is also how you know that things have changed. Congress does not operate like that anymore. They just say something, they do an executive order, um, or they do some policy, or sometimes they pass laws and they just stick them in something. And next thing you know, it's law. And, it's just like with DACA. DACA was found to be unconstitutional, but DACA recipients are still here getting benefits. They have, it's been 10 years or so since DACA came out. Those children have gone to school, people have jobs, people are just in limbo. They passed these policies and the people are still here. Nobody's sent back hardly, and it's just a big mess. But they have done things to set this in motion so that, basically we'll be destabilized. They've opened the door so that these policies can attract more people to come here. You can move around wherever you want to go now, and nobody can do anything if you're willing to sit at a border and go through the hassle of getting into a country illegally. They have to take you, and then you see what people are getting when they come. Although I will say, if you don't have family someplace that can support you and you're not going to where they are, it's kind of difficult because they'll give you these resources, but like you see people sleeping in airports, you see people sleeping in bus terminals, outside, they got to sleep in schools. It's like big humanitarian crisis in a supposed to be a first world country. So it's really weird. There is no timetable on removing the wire, acting CBP Commissioner Troy Miller said. Now, federal customs and border protection agents stand ready to swiftly cut through the fencing in response to any life-saving or critical operational matters, a law enforcement source told CNN. They will promptly breach the fencing to render aid to any individual in distress or if otherwise deemed operationally necessary, the source added. Asked if CBP reserves the right to cut through razor wire along the border despite the ongoing dispute, the source said this goes far beyond reserving the right. The U.S. Supreme Court has ordered it. Texas sued last year to stop the wire cutting, saying it illegally destroys state property and undermines security in order to assist migrants in crossing the border. A federal appeals court in December ordered Border Patrol agents to stop the practice while court proceedings play out, and the Justice Department this month filed an emergency application asking the Supreme Court to overturn that decision. Texas Governor Abbott and his Department of Public Safety doubled down Monday on their use of state-erected barriers. This is not over, Abbott wrote Monday on X. Texas razor wire is an effective deterrent to the illegal crossings Biden encourages. I will continue to defend Texas's constitutional authority, and that's the state constitution authority, to secure the border and to prevent the Biden administration from destroying our property. So this is where the poop getting ready to hit the fan. Because y'all know these white people in these gun happy states. Now I'm 2A all day, and I'm just say I want everybody to be able to protect themselves. Period. So anyway, I just want to say that this is how the civil unrest will begin. It's gonna begin in a lot of different areas. You already see the social unrest and the pushback against the elemental P community. You see people are tired of inflation, so people are talking about that. People are talking about high rents and mortgage. So a lot of things are being talked about, but people aren't really like physically irritated and hitting the streets, and they won't do that until things get so bad that they're looking for some help. Now, with this other piece with these states' rights, we have to pay attention to this because depending on what state you live in, these states could get together and decide they're going to fight the federal government. Well, when they decide to do that, then that means your state has to fight against our military. Well, the military back during um, the Confederacy ain't the same. We don't have the type of stuff that could protect the citizens, and the citizens don't necessarily have the things they need to protect themselves from a government that has energy weapons that can fire from the sky, outer space, um, microwave weapons that could just, they could drive by in a car and emit frequencies that can paralyze you, make you deaf, can give you a heart attack. Like, there are so many things that, I don't think people are really paying attention to or thinking about. And it's really scary that this is happening at this particular time because so many other things are unstable. You see the BRICS currency um, push is going ahead, where these countries are using their own money and trying to and undermining the dollar. And their goal is to destabilize the dollar by 2024, the end of 2024. And it's working. If you go in the grocery store, you can see how much things have gone up. You just see, just everything is expensive. And all the Ponzi schemes that we have been not questioning, now people are like really paying attention to stuff and just like, wait a minute, this is something that's not right. And so we just are um, sitting in the middle of a really bad situation, a lot of bad situations. And me living in South Carolina and knowing this state's history, when it comes to the Confederacy, y'all know they ain't never let that stuff go. So they really about this life. These patriot white people are always ready to form militias and protect their stuff. What scares me though is like black people don't really understand. They don't really know anything about that history. A lot of younger black people and even some mature black people, 40 and up, like they just don't understand the ending of the Reconstruction era. They don't understand what the Civil War was about. Or even if they do, like they don't really understand what was happening, even though allegedly, um, the federal government was trying to intervene and do something on behalf of us, kind of, sort of. The states were like, no, we like our free labor, we like our money, we like our way of life, and we are going to keep it, and we're going to fight you about it. We want all the smoke. And they fought a good fight. How many people today can process your state having to fight your federal government? Citizen got to fight another citizen. You got to literally kill your citizens for your employer or for whichever side of the war you're on. That's where we are headed. And that's going to happen. When it happens, it's going to happen for a minute, and then there's going to be an intervention. So we have to be prepared for that. We also have to be prepared for the unknowns, because if you're in a state that secedes, or you're in a state that sympathizes with some of the other states that decided to secede or challenge the federal government, then your resources could be cut off. Think about all the people who receive public benefits. Seceding from the federal government is not a little thing. It says, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm not a part of the union anymore. And then immediately life changes. Immediately money stops flowing in from the federal government. Immediately all the things that you were accustomed to, like your children going to school, who pays for that? Well, the state might not have enough money, especially if you're from the South, because most of our states are poor. Our people are poor. We don't have the tax base to support such institutions and structures. So it's very unnerving. I'll say that. Um, anyway, it says Texas will maintain its current posture in deterring illegal border crossings by utilizing effective border security measures. Department of Public Safety spokesperson Lieutenant Chris Olivares wrote Monday on the platform, claiming Texas is the only state using every strategy and resource to protect its sovereignty, combat criminal activity, and discourage illegal immigration. So you hear that. So y'all know this movie, the Civil War movie, was about Texas seceding from the Union and fighting the government, making its way through all these southern states to get to Washington to fight. And so I don't know if you watch JWTV, and I'll put a link to his most recent video in the comment section. He talked about these drills that are being done all over the country, and one was done this month in Washington, D.C. And there were military helicopters flying over the state capitol doing drills very low. And it looked like they were preparing to evacuate people. I don't know what's happening, but there have been a lot of drills over the last couple of years. A lot since the pandemic, but more so over the last couple of months. All sorts of drills for different types of situations in the airports, at event venues, just in the woods, in major cities. So they're preparing for something. And I don't know if it is they're preparing for civil war, if they're in civil unrest, if they're preparing for invasion, if these sleeper cells wake up. And the sleeper cells are coming through the border as well. So we gotta understand that, um, you know, things are changing rapidly. And there's nothing that we're going to be able to do about it. We just, like I said, we're just collateral damage. So I'm going to move on and talk about states' rights, because a lot of times people don't really understand. You work with government, you understand the rights that the state has and the rights that the federal government has as part of their relationship with each other. So states' rights, or the rights or powers retained by regional governments or a federal union under the provisions of a federal constitution. That's what states' rights are. So it says, in the United States, Switzerland, and Australia, the powers of the regional governments are those that remain after the powers of central government have been enumerated in the Constitution. In contrast, the powers at both state and regional level and the national level of government are defined clearly by specific provisions of the constitutions of Canada and Germany. The concept of states' rights is closely related to that of state rights, which was invoked from the 18th century in Europe to legitimate the powers vested in sovereign national governments. Doctrines asserting state rights were developed in context in which states functioned as distinct dictions in a federal system of government. In the United States, for example, Americans in the 18th and 19th century often referred to the rights of states, implying that each state had inherent rights and sovereignty. And so this is what Texas is talking about. So they're going back to this doctrine from the 18th century. Like it's never gone anywhere, but it's we get ready to learn it doesn't apply anymore because the white people have changed the game. Before and following the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865, the U.S. states, particularly the southern states, shared the belief that each of them was sovereign and should have jurisdiction over its most important affairs. By the end of the 20th century, the term was applied more broadly to a variety of efforts aimed at reducing the powers of national governments, which had grown considerably in both scope and size. The meaning of states' rights. So it says advocates of states' rights put greater trust and confidence in regional and state governments than in national ones. So here's where our issue is now. We have, and when I say we this time, I'm talking about African American Black people. We have relied on the federal government to advocate on our behalf. And what we're finding out is we were advocating really against our own interests because they had a totally different plan. And when states, like there are no good guys. So, for instance, let's just talk about voting. You see how the states always try to infringe upon our rights to vote, and they just don't want us to participate in society. They want us to work and pay taxes, but don't have any um, representation and any rights. So they always challenge us. Well, the federal government has made it a practice to advocate on our behalf, and we have been content with that. What we were not thinking about, or what we didn't really understand, was that, in some instances, this also helped to strengthen the federal government and weaken states and states' rights. This is just one instance, but I can think of several others. I'm not going to go through them, but the point is, the federal government can and does often work on behalf of certain groups to um, advocate for certain populations, mainly us, because it was just us at one point in time who needed protections from states, the southern states, because they were so grossly unfair and unjust. But make no mistake, they were not our friends either. Like, we didn't have no friends. Everybody had a plan, and now you're seeing the fruit of the plans. But you can't trust regional and state governments. As African Americans, we can't trust either government. Government for us has just always been problematic. State governments, according to them, are more responsive to popular control, more sensitive to state issues and problems, and more understanding of the culture and values of the state's population than our national governments. For these reasons, they argue state governments are better able to address important problems and protect individual rights. And so that's what's happening, like I said, in Texas, because Texas is trying to protect its culture, trying to make sure they're not overrun with people who will change their culture and to address whatever problems this they perceive individuals might have. In the United States, states' rights proponents also have maintained that strong state governments are more consistent with the vision of Republican government put forward by the founding fathers. They cite in support of their view the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which reserves for the states the residue of powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states. So it says, in the United States, the term states' rights have been applied to a variety of political programs. And here's where the problem comes in. So it says, before the American Civil War, it was the rallying cry of Southern opponents of Northern inspired tariffs and Northern proposals to abolish or restrict slavery. The doctrine also was used as an argument for the theory known as nullification, which claimed that states had the right to annul an act of the federal government within their boundaries, and for the claim that the states, by virtue of their sovereignty, had the right to secede from the Union. And so this is what could possibly happen. But notice that they always mention that states' rights are always going to be tied to the act of abolishing or restricting slavery. And the nullification is like basically when the states say, when the federal government says, we have money for Medicare, we have COVID money, and the state is like, I don't want it. I'm gonna let my people die. I don't want it because we're gonna have to pay it back. Or whatever reason that they give, they have the right to do that. And they act as a state, act upon states' rights. And sometimes, although we can't see the big picture, it feels like, gosh, they're so harsh. They don't care about the people. But it's not that. Sometimes they understand, like, there's some strings attached, or some things, some conditions that they might have to meet that the state might not be able to meet, or they may be required to maintain some stuff after they got that money, and they don't want that obligation because it's going to be, it will require more resources than they had to allocate to it. So those are the types of things that, when we see a state rejecting something from the federal government, we think, oh, it is political. But sometimes it's just the state exercising its rights, which I think is healthy. It's just like any other relationship. Sometimes people test your boundaries, and you just got to check them. It's that type of thing. So it says, which claimed the states had the right to annul. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. The constitutional question was resolved only by the victory of the North, which was the federal government, in the Civil War. A century later, the doctrine was used to justify opposition to the federal government's efforts to enforce racial desegregation. So notice it's always associated with us, states' rights. But this time, it's not going to have anything to do with us because we are allegedly citizens, allegedly, with no rights and representation. But anyway, this time, this is going to be all about the children of the corn. Such uses of the doctrine of states' rights in the United States and elsewhere prompted some critics to claim that it serves parochial interest. According to them, states' rights are invoked by majorities in the states to justify laws and practices that discriminate against various ethnic, religious, and minority groups. I would say yes, because all these people are talking about is keeping out other people so they can keep it white, basically, and the same, which means they rule. Anything that is going to challenge their rule is going to be challenged. They contend that a strong national government is necessary to ensure that states respect the rights guaranteed to all citizens in the national constitution. States' rights advocates also addressed issues. What happened to the rest of my piece? States' rights advocates also addressed issues related to environmental protection and education. In the Western United States, for example, some citizen groups questioned the power of the federal government to issue pollution standards and regulation on waters and land use, arguing that they amounted to an unconstitutional infringement on the right of states to manage their own natural resources. And this is something that I had to learn moving to Florida, because there are, like, for waters, and even on land, there are some, well, I guess it's in states too, not in Florida, but just my experience relating to water, because that's my experience. But when fishing, there are fishing regulations that are federal and that are state. And so you have to know both when you go saltwater fishing, depending on how far out you go, depending on, it's what type of fish you catch. Some stuff you can't catch, you can't harvest, you can't keep. And so it's your responsibility. But some stuff is so close to land, it's like, why does the federal government have jurisdiction over this? So the federal government has jurisdiction over a lot of stuff in states, and you just kind of sometimes are left confused because it's like an overlap, and it can be confusing. But once you see it, it's like, this is a lot. But you can always see the overlay where a state will have something and the federal government will always come in. Sometimes they'll work with and work alongside, the rules or whatever laws work alongside of states. But oftentimes they kind of supersede or are on top of states and are greatly different. And so it's confusing. So when you talk about these environmental protections and natural resources, that's what I think about. Many states also resisted the imposition of national education testing standards out of concern that they would undermine the state's historical control over education. So, all these things we have been used as pawns for states' rights, for states to exercise their rights to mistreat us, and the government has used us to challenge states' rights in order to get more control in states over us. So this is how we always somebody's property. We're always somebody's property. People are always trying to tell us what we're going to do. We always need somebody or some law or something to protect us, because we're always being taken advantage of. So I don't really want to spend that much more time talking about states' rights. If you're interested in it, I will put a link in the description. But what I want to have you take away from this discussion is we don't have any rights, because you always have to have somebody to fight for your rights. And as these rights are being rolled back, and states' rights are being taken away, we don't have any protections. We being African American Black people. Um, I've read to you, in a couple of instances where we've had to have government intervention. Well, they're not going to intervene for you no more. They're done. They're intervening for everybody else but you. So you have to understand you are on your own. You're all you got. This is why Black people need to be trying to be community minded, collectively thinking and moving, because we don't have any protections. We don't have any um, advocates for us. This system is advocating for everybody but us. And we understand why they are not advocating for us. We are hated, and they're going to do whatever they can do on the way out to undermine everything they can of ours that was meant for us. So as you see these different things happening, these states' rights challenges, as these things play out, understand they're really getting down to the crux of we getting ready to start doing stuff to our property, because our property don't have any rights. Our property's not protected. So if the federal government and the states decide they're going to fight, today they're fighting about illegal entrance. Tomorrow they're going to be fighting about us. They're not really going to be fighting because now they're on one accord when it comes to us. They're done. So this is what we need to understand when it comes to states' rights. They're not going to be any protections for us. And when it comes to federal protections, we're not going to have those either, because they've moved on. They're protecting other immigrant groups, not us. So with that said, I need y'all to really, really, really pay attention to what's happening in Texas. This buildup of the challenges of states' rights and secession and Civil War talk is real. And if one state does it, you best believe other states are going to join in, because everybody's not down, I don't think, with this new world order. I do think there are some people in government who are not a part of the whole system. But I don't know. When it comes to states, I think states, I would trust states more than federal folks. But again, I don't know, because so many of of these people are bought out by, private non-governmental entities functioning on behalf of this global order. So anyway, just be mindful of the times that we're living in. At any moment, anything could pop off. Pay attention to the activities in your communities, these trainings. A lot of these trainings are going on. Nobody's talking about them. People are seeing stuff and like wondering what's happening. Why are these things going on? And there are also just other laws and different things being passed to ensure whatever needs to take place will take place smoothly. The transition is happening right now as we speak, and they're preparing for civil unrest. They've already told you that. We're entering into the second year of the New World Order, and so to help them meet their 2030 agenda, they got to do some things. They got to create chaos. And so we're moving into the next phase of chaos. Be ready for everything. So keep prepping, keep praying, keep seeking the Most High, keep repenting for your sins daily, sins of commission and sins of omission. Obey those laws, statutes, and commandments. Make sure you understand the Sabbath and observe it. We need to be fasting and praying individually and corporately because we just cannot continue to ignore what's happening because it's going to directly impact us in a major way quickly. And when these things start happening and people are not going to be prepared, people are going to be out in the street acting crazy, and it's just going to be in national chaos. And our people are going to be easy pickings because we're not prepared. We don't listen. We don't want to hear nothing. People talking about all this bad stuff, and black folks talking about, oh, we don't want to hear nothing about doom and gloom. You better listen to some doom and gloom because things are getting ready to pop off. 2024 ain't going to be nothing like 2020, 2021. It's going to be, they say it's going to be 20 times worse. It's going to be 20 times worse. I believe them. I believe everything they say. They ain't lied yet. So we should not be sitting around acting like nothing is gonna happen. You should assume everything they say is gonna happen. When the devil tells you he gonna do something, and you can see the devil and you can hear the devil, and you can comprehend what the devil is saying, you need to listen to the devil. Period. They're not hiding nothing. They're telling you what they're gonna do. So we need to pay attention, get on one accord, and plan to how we're gonna protect ourselves. The sad thing for me is there's so many men who are just not prepared. And I just feel sorry for our community. I really do. Our children ain't prepared. The men not prepared. The women not prepared. Like nobody's prepared. But you know what I'm prepared to do? Shut up in my house and be quiet. And if people come and ask me something, I will tell them. But I'm just very mindful right now that people are not going to wake up until it's too late. So until that time comes, I'm going to spend my time talking to those I can minister to. When I cannot, I'm going to be quiet. There's a time to talk and a time to be silent. And I feel like this is a time right now that we need to try to sound the alarm bells, but we also need to be mindful that we are talking to like the walking dead. And a lot of these people are not going to be here, and it's going to be their own fault because just like we have the internet, just like we can comprehend, just like we can read, they have access to the same information, and they choose to spend their time and efforts doing something totally different. So I just don't know what to say about those people except for I pray that they wake up soon because things are going to turn quickly, very quickly. All right, I will keep put links to these two topics in the um, comment section because the algorithms, for whatever reason, don't like when I put stuff in certain topics in the description. So I try to put some stuff, depending on what I'm talking about, in the comment section. But anyway, check the comment section for links. Like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Rumble and Odyssey, Facebook and Instagram. Those links are in the description. Keep prepping, y'all. That's all I can say. Keep prepping and keep watching. A lot of things are happening. Lots of things. All right, this is Marla K, and I'm out.